99% of you are not subscribed to the channel. At 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories. Subscribe now.
Sergeant James Turner had been through many missions, but none like this. The moment his boots touched the surface of Xylor 7, he knew this planet was different. The air was thick with an electric charge that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. The dense bioluminescent forests glowed with an eerie light, casting long, shifting shadows that played tricks on his eyes. The sky above was a swirling mix of deep purples and greens, punctuated by the occasional flash of distant lightning. Xylor 7 was alive, and it wasn't friendly. His mission was straightforward: retrieve a downed reconnaissance drone deep within enemy territory. Command wanted the data it had collected, and Turner, a veteran soldier with years of experience, was the man they trusted to get it. But as he moved through the alien forest, weapon at the ready, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. The forest was unnervingly quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of some unseen creature. Turner's eyes scanned the surroundings, his senses on high alert. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming at him. But every time he thought he saw something, it would disappear before he could get a clear look. He pressed on, his grip tightening on his rifle as he approached the location where the drone had gone down. The wreckage was just ahead, a twisted mass of metal and circuitry half buried in the dense undergrowth. As he got closer, he crouched down, examining the remains of the drone. It had been heavily damaged, far more than what a simple crash would have caused. Something had torn it apart. Turner's heart began to race as he realized that whatever had done this could still be nearby. He rose to his feet, scanning the area once more. That's when he saw it. A flicker of movement at the edge of his vision. He spun around, rifle raised, but all he saw was a blur of motion disappearing into the shadows. "Come out!" Turner called into the darkness, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "I know you're there." For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then slowly she emerged from the shadows. She was unlike any creature Turner had ever seen. Tall and impossibly graceful, she moved with a fluidity that was almost hypnotic. Her skin was a deep, shimmering blue, covered in iridescent patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and glowing with an inner light that held him captive. She was alien, but there was something eerily familiar about her as well. Turner's training kicked in, and he raised his rifle, aiming it squarely at the creature. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, regarding him with what seemed like curiosity. Her gaze was intense, piercing, as if she could see straight through him. "Stop right there," Turner ordered, trying to keep his voice firm. But the alien girl didn't stop. She continued to move towards him, her steps slow and deliberate. Turner's finger hovered over the trigger, his mind racing. What was she? What did she want? Then, in a blur of motion that defied everything he knew about speed and reflexes, she was upon him. Turner barely had time to react as she closed the distance between them. He fired his rifle, but she was too fast. With a single fluid motion, she knocked the weapon from his hands, sending it skidding across the ground. Turner reached for his sidearm, but before he could draw it, she was there again, her hand wrapping around his wrist with a grip that was surprisingly strong. He struggled, but it was like fighting against a force of nature. The alien girl was impossibly strong, and yet there was something almost gentle about the way she held him. For a moment, they stood there, locked in a silent struggle. Turner could see the intelligence in her eyes, the way they flickered with thoughts and emotions that he couldn't begin to understand. But there was something else there too, something that unsettled him even more than her strength. It was as if she was studying him, trying to understand him, and perhaps to communicate with him. Before he could process what was happening, she made another swift motion. With a surprising ease, she tore the front of his uniform open, ripping the fabric as if it were tissue paper. Turner gasped, more in shock than pain, as his chest was suddenly exposed to the cool night air. The alien girl's eyes widened slightly, as if she had found something she was looking for. Turner's mind raced. Was this some kind of ritual, an attack? He couldn't make sense of it. All he knew was that he was completely out of his depth. The alien girl, still holding his wrist, reached out with her other hand, her fingers brushing lightly against his exposed skin. The touch sent a shiver down his spine, but it wasn't unpleasant. It was almost comforting. Then, something strange began to happen. As her fingers traced along his chest, Turner felt a warmth spread through his body, a warmth that seemed to originate from her touch. It wasn't just physical, There was something deeper, something that reached into his very being. He could feel his heart racing, not out of fear but out of something else, something he couldn't quite name. The alien girl's eyes met his once more, and in that moment Turner felt a connection. It was brief, just a flicker, but it was enough to make him realize that this was no ordinary encounter. She wasn't here to harm him, at least not in the way he had thought. There was a purpose to her actions, a reason for why she had sought him out. But before he could even begin to understand what that reason might be, the alien girl stepped back, releasing his wrist. The warmth that had filled him began to fade, leaving him feeling strangely empty. She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before turning and disappearing into the shadows as quickly as she had appeared. Turner stood there, stunned and confused, his uniform hanging in tatters around him. The forest was silent once more, the only sound his own ragged breathing. He had no idea what had just happened, but one thing was certain. This mission had just become a lot more complicated. The encounter with the alien girl left Sergeant James Turner reeling. He stood in the clearing, surrounded by the strange glowing foliage of Xylor 7, his chest still exposed where she had torn his uniform. His heart was still pounding, his mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. The alien girl hadn't attacked him in the way he'd expected, but her actions were still an enigma. As the initial shock began to wear off, Turner knew he couldn't stay in the open. He quickly retrieved his rifle, scanning the area for any signs of movement. The forest was still, the only sound the faint hum of alien insects in the distance. He needed to regroup, find a secure location and contact command. But as he moved to radio in, he hesitated. What would he even report? That an alien girl had appeared out of nowhere, disarmed him, and then, what? Examined him? He wasn't sure he understood it himself. He decided to focus on the immediate task at hand, recovering the drone and its data. Whatever had just happened, the mission still needed to be completed. Turner moved cautiously through the undergrowth, his senses heightened. But even as he focused on his surroundings, his mind kept returning to the alien girl. The touch of her fingers on his skin, the warmth that had spread through his body. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Finally, he reached the wreckage of the drone. It was a mess of twisted metal and sparking wires, but the data core was still intact. Turner quickly retrieved it, securing it in his pack. As he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched again. He turned, scanning the dense forest, but saw nothing. Still, the sensation was there, like a prickling at the back of his neck. "Come on, Turner, get it together," he muttered to himself, but the unease wouldn't go away. With the data core secured, he began the journey back to the extraction point. The forest around him seemed to close in, the trees and undergrowth feeling more oppressive with each step. And then, just as he was beginning to relax, she appeared again. This time she didn't emerge from the shadows. Instead, she seemed to materialize right in front of him as if the very air had coalesced into her form. Turner froze, his rifle raised, but she made no move to attack. Instead, she stood there, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "What do you want?" Turner demanded, his voice more steady than he felt. But the alien girl didn't respond. Instead, she reached out again, her hand extending towards him. Turner flinched, instinctively stepping back, but she moved with him, her hand hovering just inches from his chest. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, a warmth that seemed to seep into his skin, into his very being. And then, the world around him shifted. Turner gasped as a flood of images and sensations filled his mind. He saw flashes of other worlds, alien landscapes bathed in strange light. He saw beings like her, tall and graceful, moving through those worlds with a purpose he couldn't fully grasp. He felt their connection to each other, a bond that went beyond mere communication, something deeper, more profound. And in the center of it all, he saw himself. The vision was overwhelming, and Turner staggered, nearly falling to his knees. The alien girl reached out, steadying him with a touch that was both gentle and firm. The images continued to flood his mind, but now there was a clarity to them, a focus. He saw the planet of Xylor 7 as it truly was, not just a hostile environment, but a living, breathing entity. The forest wasn't just trees and plants. It was a part of a vast, interconnected network of life, all of it bound together by a force he could barely comprehend. As the vision began to fade, Turner found himself gasping for breath. The alien girl stepped back, her expression softening as she looked at him. He could feel the weight of her gaze, the intelligence behind those glowing eyes. She wasn't just some mindless creature. She was something far more complex, far more powerful. What was that? Turner asked, his voice trembling slightly. The alien girl tilted her head, considering him for a moment. Then for the first time she spoke, not with words but with a voice that echoed in his mind, soft and melodic. "You are not like the others," she said, her tone carrying a strange mixture of curiosity and something that might have been respect. "You can see." Turner frowned, trying to make sense of her words. "See what?" "The truth," she replied simply. Before Turner could ask anything more, she reached out again, her hand hovering just above his chest. This time there was no hesitation. He could feel the warmth again, but this time it was different, more intense, more focused. And with it came understanding. The alien girl was a guardian, a protector of the balance between life and death, creation and destruction. Her people, the Shilan, had existed for eons, moving from world to world, ensuring that the delicate equilibrium of the universe was maintained. And now, for reasons he couldn't yet fully grasp, she had chosen him. "You are different," she said again, her voice echoing in his mind. "You can help us." "Help you?" Turner repeated, struggling to wrap his mind around the concept. "How?" "You will see," she said simply. And with that, the connection was broken. Turner staggered back, the sudden loss of the connection leaving him disoriented. The alien girl watched him, her expression unreadable. He could feel the weight of the moment, the sense that something monumental had just occurred, but he couldn't fully grasp it yet. "Wait," he called out, but she was already stepping back, fading into the shadows once more. "I don't understand." But she was gone, leaving Turner alone in the clearing, the forest around him returning to its eerie silence. He stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything that had just happened. The warmth that had filled him, the connection he had felt. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. And now, more than ever, he knew that this mission was about more than just retrieving a drone. Something much bigger was at play, something that he was now a part of, whether he liked it or not. With a deep breath, Turner secured his gear and continued his journey through the forest. He could still feel the lingering effects of the connection, a faint warmth in his chest that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Whatever had happened, whatever was coming, he knew one thing for certain: his life had just changed forever. As he moved through the undergrowth, his senses heightened. Turner couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The alien girl had shown him something profound and terrifying, and he knew that he had to understand it. Not just for his own sake, but for the sake of the entire galaxy. And deep down he knew that the next time he encountered her, he would be ready. Sergeant James Turner felt like he was caught in a dream, one that was rapidly slipping into a nightmare. The events of the last few hours played on a loop in his mind as he moved deeper into the alien wilderness of Xylor 7. The encounter with the alien girl had left him shaken, not just physically, but on a level he couldn't fully understand. He had experienced something profound, something that defied everything he knew about the universe. As he trudged through the dense forest, the weight of the drone's data core heavy in his pack, Turner's thoughts kept drifting back to the visions she had shown him. The interconnected web of life, the guardianship of balance, it all seemed so far removed from the soldier's life he had known. But the alien girl's words echoed in his mind, haunting him with their simplicity. "You can help us." He reached a small clearing, the air thick with the sweet scent of alien flora. The bioluminescent plants bathed the area in a soft, ethereal glow, casting strange, dancing shadows on the ground. Turner dropped his pack and sat down on a fallen log, trying to steady his racing heart. He needed to regroup, to think, but his mind was a whirl of conflicting emotions. What did she mean that he could help them? And why did she say he was different? Turner had always prided himself on being an ordinary soldier, reliable, steadfast, good at following orders. But now, everything he thought he knew about himself was being called into question. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sharp pain in his chest. Turner gasped, clutching at his heart as the pain intensified. It felt as though something inside him was trying to break free, to claw its way out. His vision blurred, the world around him tilting dangerously as he fought to stay conscious. The pain spread, radiating out from his chest to every part of his body, burning through his veins like liquid fire. He fell to his knees, his body racked with convulsions as the pain reached a crescendo. His vision swam and he caught glimpses of the forest around him, the trees, the glowing plants, shifting, warping, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Turner tried to cry out, but no sound came. The pain was too intense, too overwhelming. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pain stopped. Turner collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, his body trembling with the aftershocks of whatever had just happened. His skin was drenched in sweat, his muscles aching as if he had just run a marathon. He lay there for what felt like an eternity, too exhausted to move, too shocked to think. Slowly he became aware of a new sensation, a warmth, different from the searing pain he had just endured. It was a gentle warmth, spreading through his body, soothing the raw nerves and aching muscles. Turner opened his eyes, blinking in the dim light of the clearing. Everything looked sharper, more vibrant, as if a veil had been lifted from his senses. He pushed himself up onto his elbows, his breath still coming in ragged gasps. The clearing seemed to pulse with life, the plants glowing brighter, the air humming with a low, resonant frequency that he could feel deep in his bones. Turner stared at his hands, expecting to see them burned or scarred from the pain he had felt. But they looked normal, except they weren't. His skin, once rough and weathered from years of combat, now seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light, a subtle iridescence that hadn't been there before. His senses felt sharper, more attuned to his surroundings. He could hear the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, the distant calls of alien creatures, and beneath it all the steady rhythmic pulse of the planet itself. "What the hell?" Turner muttered to himself, his voice sounding strange in his ears, almost resonant. He struggled to his feet, unsteady but feeling a strength in his limbs that hadn't been there before. It was as if his body had been infused with some kind of energy, something powerful and ancient. "You are ready," a voice said, soft and melodic, cutting through the silence of the clearing. Turner spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. The alien girl stood at the edge of the clearing, her glowing eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. She moved towards him with that same fluid grace, her presence commanding yet strangely comforting. "What did you do to me?" Turner demanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. "I have shown you the way," she replied, her tone calm and measured. "You are no longer just a soldier of Earth, you are more." Turner shook his head, trying to make sense of her words. "I don't understand. What do you mean, more? What have you done to me?" The alien girl stepped closer, and Turner could feel the warmth radiating from her again. But this time it wasn't just a physical warmth. It was something deeper, something that seemed to resonate with the very core of his being. "You are now one of us," she said softly. "You have been chosen to protect the balance, to guard the delicate web of life that connects all things." Turner felt a surge of emotions, fear, confusion, anger, and beneath it all, a strange sense of acceptance, as if a part of him had always known this was his true purpose. But he wasn't ready to accept it, not yet. "I'm just a soldier," he said, his voice cracking. I'm not what you think I am." The alien girl smiled, a gentle, understanding smile that made something in Turner's chest tighten. "You were once just a soldier," she said, "but now you are more. The transformation is complete. You have been given the gifts of the Shilan, the power to see beyond the surface, to feel the connections between all living things." Turner's mind reeled as he tried to process what she was saying. The visions she had shown him earlier, the pain, the warmth, it was all part of this transformation. But what did it mean for him? What did it mean to be one of them? "I didn't ask for this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want this." "The universe does not ask for permission," the alien girl replied, her voice gentle but firm. "It simply is. You were chosen because you have the strength, the will to carry this burden. You are needed now more than ever." Turner felt a surge of frustration. Needed for what? To fight some kind of cosmic war? To protect the balance? I don't even know what that means. "You will learn," she said simply. "In time you will understand." She reached out, her hand hovering just above his chest, and Turner felt that familiar warmth again, spreading through his body, calming his racing heart. "You are not alone, James Turner. The Shilan are with you always. We will guide you, teach you, but the path is yours to walk." Turner stared at her, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He wanted to reject it, to deny what was happening, but deep down, he knew that there was no going back. Whatever had been done to him, whatever he had become, it was now a part of him. "What do I do now?" he asked, his voice small and uncertain. The alien girl smiled again, a look of pride in her eyes. "You will continue your mission. But now you will do so with a greater purpose. The balance must be maintained, the connections protected. And you, James Turner, are now a guardian of that balance." Turner swallowed hard, the enormity of what she was saying sinking in. He was no longer just a soldier on a mission, he was something else entirely, something more. But as terrifying as that thought was, there was also a strange sense of peace, a feeling that he was exactly where he was meant to be. I understand," he said finally, his voice steadying as he accepted the reality of his new existence. "I'll do what I have to do." The alien girl nodded, her expression serene. "Good. The path ahead will not be easy, but you are not alone. We will face it together." With that, she turned and began to walk away, disappearing into the glowing undergrowth of the forest. Turner watched her go, his heart heavy but his resolve firm. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the man he had been. He was something more. Sergeant James Turner stood at the edge of the clearing, watching as the alien girl vanished into the bioluminescent undergrowth of Xylor 7. Her presence had left an indelible mark on him, both physically and mentally. He could still feel the strange, warm energy pulsing through his veins, the remnants of his transformation. The soldier he had been was gone, replaced by something new, something far greater and far more terrifying. The weight of his new reality settled on him like a heavy cloak. He was no longer just a soldier on a simple retrieval mission. He was now a guardian of the galaxy, tasked with protecting the delicate balance of life across worlds. The enormity of that responsibility was almost too much to bear. But Turner knew he didn't have the luxury of doubt. The mission, whatever form it had now taken, still lay before him. With renewed purpose, Turner secured the data core from the downed drone and began making his way back through the forest toward the extraction point. The landscape that had once felt so hostile now seemed alive with possibility. He could sense the life all around him, the plants, the creatures, the very soil under his boots, each connected by an invisible thread of energy that thrummed in harmony with the pulse in his own body. It was as if the entire planet was alive, and he was now a part of it. As he moved through the forest, his mind kept returning to the visions the alien girl had shown him. He could see them with crystal clarity, worlds teeming with life, all connected by the same intricate web of existence. He saw the Shallan, the ancient race to which the alien girl belonged, moving silently through the cosmos, maintaining the balance, intervening only when necessary. And now, inexplicably, he was one of them. The path through the forest led him to a ridge overlooking a wide valley, the extraction point just beyond it. Turner paused at the top, his eyes scanning the horizon. The alien sky was still a swirl of purples and greens, the distant flashes of lightning illuminating the landscape below. It was beautiful in a way that Turner had never appreciated before, and he realized that his new perspective allowed him to see things differently, not just the physical world, but the deeper underlying truths that governed it. But as he looked out over the valley, Turner noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. In the distance near the extraction point, he could see movement, several figures moving stealthily through the underbrush. At first he thought they were enemy combatants, but as he focused he realized they were human soldiers, members of his own unit sent to extract him. He should have felt relief, but instead, a cold dread settled in his gut. He knew now that his mission had changed, and these soldiers were unknowingly walking into a situation they couldn't possibly understand. Turner felt the pull of duty, the need to protect them, not just from the alien dangers of Xylor 7, but from the new reality he now inhabited. He descended the ridge, moving swiftly but cautiously toward the extraction point. As he approached, he could see his comrades more clearly, 5 soldiers heavily armed, moving in formation. They hadn't seen him yet, and Turner debated how to approach them. He was still one of them, but also something more, and he knew he would have to tread carefully. "Sergeant Turner, this is Alpha Team. Do you copy?" The voice crackled over his earpiece, snapping Turner out of his thoughts. "I copy, Alpha Team," Turner responded, his voice steady. "I'm approaching your position from the northwest. Hold your fire." "Copy that, Sergeant. We've been tracking you since you picked up the data core. Command's eager to get that intel back. We've got a bird incoming to extract us in 5. What's your status?" Turner hesitated. How could he explain what had happened to him? How could he make them understand the transformation he had undergone? He couldn't simply tell them he was now part of an ancient race of guardians without sounding insane, but he had to tell them something. "Status is ... complicated," Turner replied, carefully choosing his words. Mission parameters have changed. We need to discuss before extraction. There was a brief silence on the other end, and Turner could imagine the confusion and concern that must be spreading among the team. Understood, Sergeant. We'll debrief on the bird. Just get here in one piece. Turner quickened his pace, emerging from the underbrush into the clearing where Alpha Team had set up a perimeter. The soldiers turned to face him as he approached, their expressions a mix of relief and curiosity. Turner could feel their eyes on him, and for a moment, he wondered if they could sense the change in him, if they could see the faint shimmer that now clung to his skin. "Good to see you, Sergeant," said Lieutenant Harris, the team leader, stepping forward to meet him. "You had us worried for a while there. What's this about a change in mission parameters?" Turner looked around at the faces of his comrades, men and women he had fought alongside, bled with. He wanted to tell them everything, but he knew it would be too much, too soon. Instead, he focused on the immediate threat. "The drone's data core contains more than just intel on enemy movements," Turner began, keeping his voice low. "There's something happening on this planet, something bigger than we anticipated. We're not just dealing with hostile forces. There's a presence here, something ancient and powerful. We need to be careful." Harris frowned, clearly trying to process what Turner was saying. "What kind of presence? Are we talking about some new alien tech or something else?" "Something else," Turner replied, his tone grave. "I can't explain it all right now, but we're dealing with forces beyond our understanding. We need to get this data back to command, but we also need to be prepared for unforeseen consequences." Before Harris could respond, the sound of approaching rotor blades filled the air. The extraction chopper was coming in fast, its silhouette appearing over the ridge. The soldiers moved into position, preparing for a quick extraction, but Turner felt a strange sense of foreboding. As the chopper descended, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris, Turner's senses suddenly flared. He could feel a disturbance, a ripple in the energy that surrounded him. It was as if the planet itself was reacting to their presence, as if something was about to happen. "Get ready!" Harris shouted over the roar of the rotors, gesturing for the team to move toward the chopper. But Turner hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to wait, to listen. And then he saw it. A flicker of movement at the edge of the clearing, barely visible in the swirling dust. Turner's eyes locked onto the figure emerging from the shadows. It was another alien, similar to the girl he had encountered earlier, but different in some fundamental way. This one was larger, more imposing, with an aura of menace that sent a chill down Turner's spine. "Contact! 11 o'clock!" Turner shouted, raising his rifle instinctively. The team reacted instantly, their weapons trained on the approaching figure, but Turner knew it wouldn't be enough. Before anyone could fire, the alien raised its hand and the ground beneath them erupted in a burst of energy. Turner felt himself thrown backward, his body slamming into the ground as the shockwave rippled through the clearing. The chopper veered off, struggling to maintain control as the energy field disrupted its systems. Turner scrambled to his feet, his senses reeling from the impact. The alien was advancing, its movements deliberate and menacing. But Turner could feel something else, a connection, a faint thread of understanding that linked him to the creature. He realized with a sudden clarity that this alien wasn't just an enemy. It was a guardian like the girl, but one driven by a darker purpose. "Fall back!" Turner shouted, trying to pull his team away from the confrontation. But it was too late. The alien unleashed another wave of energy, this one more focused, more deadly. Turner watched in horror as the soldiers around him were thrown back, their bodies crumpling under the force of the blast. Desperation fueled his actions as Turner reached out with his newfound abilities, tapping into the energy that now flowed through him. He could feel the planet's pulse, the connection that bound all life together, and he focused on that, drawing strength from it. The alien turned its gaze on Turner, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Turner knew he was outmatched, but he had no choice. He reached out with his mind, trying to connect with the creature to find some way to stop it. For a moment their minds touched, and Turner was overwhelmed by a flood of images, memories of destruction, of worlds torn apart by the same force that now threatened Xylor 7. This alien wasn't here to protect the balance, it was here to destroy it. With a surge of determination, Turner pushed back against the alien's mental assault, channeling the energy he had absorbed. He could feel the planet responding, the very ground beneath him lending him strength. The alien hesitated, its advance slowing as it sensed the power building within Turner. "Enough!" Turner shouted, his voice echoing with the combined power of the planet and the Shilon inside him. He unleashed the energy in a focused burst, directing it straight at the alien. The impact was immediate. The alien staggered, its form shimmering as the energy engulfed it. For a brief moment, Turner thought he had won, but then the alien's form solidified, and it began to resist, pushing back against Turner's assault. But Turner wasn't alone. He could feel the presence of the alien girl, her energy mingling with his, bolstering his strength. Together, they pressed the attack, overwhelming the alien with a force that it couldn't withstand. With a final, desperate cry, the alien's form disintegrated, dissolving into the air like a wisp of smoke. The clearing fell silent, the only sound the distant whir of the chopper as it stabilized, circling back for extraction. Turner collapsed to the ground, the last of his energy spent. The alien was gone, but the toll on him was immense. His body ached, his mind reeling from the battle he had just fought. But he knew he had succeeded. The balance had been preserved for now. His team, battered but alive, slowly gathered around him. They had seen what had happened, witnessed the power that Turner had wielded, and he could see the questions in their eyes. But there was no time to explain, no time to debrief. "We need to get off this planet," Turner said, his voice hoarse. "There's more coming and we're not ready for it." Harris nodded, helping Turner to his feet as the chopper landed in the clearing. The team moved quickly, securing the area as they prepared for extraction. As Turner climbed aboard the chopper, he looked back at the clearing one last time. The alien girl was gone, but he could still feel her presence, her connection to him. He knew that this was only the beginning, that there would be more battles to come, more challenges that would test him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But for now, he had a mission to complete, a responsibility to his team and to the balance he had sworn to protect. As the chopper lifted off, carrying them away from the dangers of Xylor 7, Turner felt a strange sense of peace. He was no longer just a soldier. He was something more, something that the galaxy needed. And whatever came next, he knew he would face it head-on, with the strength of the Shallan and the power of the universe behind him.